You've been blaming inflation for your rent. You've been blaming greedy landlords. You've been blaming the market. But what if I told you the market wasn't a market at all, it was a machine? A single piece of software quietly installed in the back office of thousands of competing landlords, telling every single one of them exactly what to charge you. Not a metaphor. Not a conspiracy theory. A real algorithm, feeding on your data, built by a company most of you have never heard of. It's called RealPage. And for years, it didn't just predict your rent. It set it. Here's why this matters. Rent isn't supposed to work like this. In a real market, landlords compete. One drops the price to fill an empty unit, another follows, and you, the renter, benefit from that competition. That's the whole idea. But RealPage broke that idea. Quietly. Legally, for a while. And by the time anyone noticed, it had already reshaped what an apartment costs in dozens of American cities. So let's go back to where this actually started. Beat 1. RealPage didn't build its pricing engine from scratch. It borrowed it from airlines. Think about how a plane ticket works. The seat you buy in March costs less than the one bought in June. The airline knows exactly how many seats are left, how much time until departure, how desperate you might get. It squeezes the price, minute by minute, to match your desperation. RealPage looked at that model and asked a simple, chilling question: why not do this to apartments? An empty unit is just an expiring seat. And you are the passenger who waited too long. Beat 2. Here's where it gets darker. To make this work, RealPage needed data. Not public data. Not rent listings you could find online. It needed the real numbers, occupancy rates, lease expirations, what the guy down the street was actually charging behind closed doors. So competing landlords who were supposed to be rivals, started feeding their private numbers into the same centralized database. Every night. Quietly. Think about that. Companies that are legally required to compete with each other were secretly comparing notes through a middleman. That's not competition. That's a cartel with a software interface. Beat 3. And it worked. It worked terrifyingly well. In some neighborhoods, investigators found that up to 70% of large apartment buildings were priced using this exact same algorithm. 70%. That's not a suggestion anymore. That's control. And the software didn't ask nicely. If a property manager wanted to lower rent for a struggling tenant, maybe someone who'd lost a job, maybe a single mom trying to hang on, RealPage had people for that. Actual human pricing advisors, whose job was to call up landlords and talk them out of lowering the price. To keep them in line. To protect the algorithm's number. Human empathy wasn't a bug in this system. It was a problem to be managed. Beat 4, and this is the part that should genuinely disturb you. You'd think a company obsessed with profit would want every apartment filled. Full occupancy, right? More renters, more money? Wrong. RealPage's own data showed landlords a different path. Leave some units empty. On purpose. Because an empty apartment creates scarcity, and scarcity lets you raise the price on everything else hard. The math worked out. Fewer tenants, at a much higher price, made more money than a full building at a fair price. So in the middle of an actual housing crisis, while people were sleeping in cars, doubling up with family, aging out of shelters, there were apartments sitting empty. Not because no one wanted them. Because a spreadsheet decided emptiness was profitable. Sit with that for a second. Beat 5. For years, nothing happened. The rent kept climbing. The algorithm kept learning. But eventually, the Department of Justice started asking questions. And in late 2025, the walls came down. A preliminary settlement of $141.8 million. Real money. A real admission that something had gone very wrong. Then the landlords themselves started falling. One by one. Like dominoes tipping over in slow motion. By June of 2026, LivCor, backed by Blackstone, one of the largest financial firms on earth, settled for $7 million and agreed to shut the software off. You'd think that's the happy ending. Cartel busted. Justice served. Roll credits. But here's the part nobody tells you. The algorithm is crippled now. Some of it, anyway. But the rent it set is still your rent. That baseline, the one built on artificial scarcity and empty apartments and years of quiet collusion, it didn't reset. It's still sitting there, in your lease, every single month. You can turn off a machine. You can't always turn back the damage it already did. So here's what I want you to actually take from this. The next time you feel like you're losing some invisible game, when the numbers just don't make sense, when the market feels less like supply and demand and more like something is working against you specifically, trust that instinct a little more. Because sometimes it's not in your head. Sometimes there really is a machine in the room, and you're just the only one who didn't get invited to see it. The rent didn't just go up. It was engineered to. And the only real defense is knowing that. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing here is financial or legal advice.